the States first, before they broke in their home country, Asia and A Flock of Seagulls. And in neither case did a picture of the group appear on the front cover of the album jacket, suggesting that it's the music inside the grooves that matters most to stimulate sales in the United States than the image of the group. Though I can't say that it's for lack of trying with Mike Score's famous haircut. Mike, we've got to get this one over with first, because this has become one of the most distinctive haircuts in rock music. How did you develop this one?
Well, actually, I have trouble keeping it down. You know, it's like I wake up in the morning, it's all done like this. I don't know what happens, and then I have to really brush it to get it flat again, and just to look normal, you know. So, you know, anyway, just kind of, we were just messing around one day, me and Frank, with our hair, and this sort of came along. I was doing it like a teddy boy thing. I went like that in the middle, and there it was, the famous haircut.
Well, you went over to the States, and you were going to do some college dates with Squeeze, and you stayed for a while, Ali. How long did you stay?
We stayed 7 months. Just a little longer, you know, than we intended. We went there for 3 weeks originally, but we had such a good time and, you know, such a good response. It was like second nature to stay there.
And you wound up doing 146 different shows. Now that is...
Well, I heard it was 147, but we won't quibble over one. Probably just a wee one anyway.
I slept through the last one.
Yeah.
But now this is an absolute phenomenal trek for a group who hadn't had a previous American tour. While you were doing it, were you all totally committed all the time? This is the right thing to do, to break.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was weird when we first went over. We were just playing Squeeze. We were doing these college gig dates. We'd get a few little gigs put in here and there, you know, of our own. Like on our day off, we'd do a gig, but it'd be in a little bar. And to play a little bar, and then to support Genesis, you know, and in like 80,000 people, like, and to do Madison Square Gardens, you know, I was stunned. It just freaked me out.
I don't think we really
thought about
it that much as we were going on. It was just that, like, suddenly it was, you know, you'd be playing in a club and then someone would say, oh, next week you're playing at this place. And you say, how big's that? And they go, oh, 12,000. So you go and do that, and then you'd be doing a string of 12,000s, you know. And then someone would tell you, oh, the next week you're in these, and they owe 22,000. And you end up playing in places that owe 50 and 60,000. And then you look back and go,
You know, at the time you think nothing to do in those big gigs, do you?
no.
It just becomes another gig.
And gradually, week by week, I crawled up the singles chart. It didn't run, it crawled.
We picked it up bit by bit.
That's right. And it finally got to the top 10 in America. Did you ever think, well, it's 31 now, this is the end?
When we first went, I think if we'd have gotten the top 100, we would have called that a success. But as we kept working, it just kept going up, and the higher it went up, the higher we wanted it to go up.
The attitude of most British groups, I find, is fairly low-key and realistic towards approaching a career in the music market. Whereas in America, there's a great deal of concern with money. And, of course, with the largest record-buying market in the world there, it is a business proposition. What's the difference that you found in dealing with the small company with which you're associated in Britain, Jive Records, and the large company you're linked with in the United States, which is called Arista? Mike?
The difference is, if Arista want to, they can push you all the way to the top. And I think when they realised that we were going to do well, they put a lot of force behind us. Whereas Jive in this country, they have kind of got to take their chances a bit. They put out a record, and they more or less hope that it does well until it reaches a certain stage. Then they can, you know, get behind it a bit more. So I think that's probably partly the way that the American market is built, the fact that companies are so big and can do a lot for you that way. Yeah.
Of course, Arista was built more or less by one man, Clive Davis.
Clive.
What was your attitude when you were going to be ushered in to meet this mogul?
Well, Clive came, the first time I met Clive, it was the first time we played Madison Square Garden. And he came in and he's a very quiet sort of man, you know, and he sort of came round us all and he said, "This is my band of this year."
He put his arms round us all, you know, and goes, "This is it, this is your year."
That's true. But what is unique about A Flock of Seagulls is that during the time where almost everything had to have a techno crowd or a synthesizer feel to it, they might have started via the dance clubs in the United States, but they did, well, a few things. The fact that they integrated the guitar, and the guitar as a prominent instrument within the group itself, and the fact when they started breaking here, they came to perform, and they never left. And it's not longevity which is to be emphasized here, because a lot of groups can come and never leave, so to speak. By never leaving, I meant performing perhaps 8 straight consecutive months. The reaction to them playing was real electrifying. So that word of mouth began spreading, and it aided us in crossing over from the dance club play to what we call the album-oriented playing stations. And so therefore, we were able to get what we call AOR play, which is progressive rock music, extended throughout the country. And they would play anywhere. They'd play a bar, they'd play a small little club. And then word of mouth, or through word of mouth, they got some major tours leading up to Madison Square Garden, which is in New York City, and 18,000-seater, opening up for the Go-Go's. So that was a tremendous gig for them. When I first saw them, they were opening up for Squeeze at the Garden, and the audience didn't know who they were, but they knew something was special by the time they were through.
He said, "You're doing marvellous things," and he said, "And we're going to help you all the way we can." And that was it. We went out and played Madison Square Garden. And since then, we've met him a few times. And he's friendly, you know, and you can talk to him. He's not like, you know, "Who's that at the door? Tell him to go away." You know, he's just like a friendly guy.
You had a first top 10 single with Iran, and then faced what may have been an excruciating decision. Do you take another single off that album, or go straight away with the British hit, which was Wishing, which you could have released at that time? What factors went into your mind when you made your decision?
Well, firstly, Space Age Love Song was being demanded by radio here. Secondly, it was on an existing album that was selling extremely strongly, you know, having reached the top 10, and has since been certified gold, selling in excess of 500,000 copies, and now considerably in excess of 500,000 copies. So that we usually in America do try to take more than one single off an album, and frequently go into a third single to probe with depth what might be there. So it never really occurred to me to come with anything other than Space Age Love Song. I do like Wishing a lot, and I'm delighted to see how well it's done on your charts as a successful record. And indeed, it does become a problem, because there are a lot of stations here, those that like to be first, and they notice that on the charts in England, and so they start playing Wishing, and we don't even have it available for sale. But Space Age Love Song has become a very successful second single, and it's helping the album quite a bit. They have a distinctive look. I mean, certainly, if you look at a hairdo as part of being a visual image, I mean, I think there's a distinctive look on stage. But I don't know, American audiences and the American music scene is not so much into. I'm always occasionally it coincides with the revolution, as it did with the Beatles and a few other artists, and of course Elton John perfected it to a tremendous extent. And in England, you've got your string of them, don't you? You really have, it ties into fashion so much, and it becomes trendy to me and somewhat fad-like. And we do resist that here. It's not quite as trendy or fad-like. And so therefore, I would say that if you come with a highly stylized look, you really will be greeted with far more suspicion than interest. Eventually, if you've got the goods musically, you can certainly utilize one's physical appearance and visual image as an adjunct to it, to your existing popularity. But I do believe that you got to have the goods here, and that your fashion look is treated as being very superficial and a little dubious.
How do you consolidate the success of a first album like your debut disc? Do you worry at all about the second one, or do you have a strategy now, whereas the first one you just put it out? Do you now have a plan, a great plot?
The second one's just going out as well. That's how it's going to be done.
Yeah, it's just going to go. We're not really thinking.
I don't think we're worried about it because we think we've got strong enough material.
Yeah, it's really strong stuff.
We've been in the rehearsal studio all week. We've been rehearsing for the new album, and you know, we're all made up with what's come out.
It's like we said, we were in there and we wrote this new song, and we said, this song is going to stun him. And we all said, yeah, I know, because it stunned me. We didn't think we could write something like that, and it just came out. And it's
over
again,
the top.
again, it's like Wishing was a step forward from what we've been doing. These are a step forward from Wishing, you know, so we're not particularly worried.
We're into the first month of 1983. How does a record company consolidate in the second year of an act's breakthrough the success they've had in the first?
I would amend the word consolidate to say expand. You really got to prove yourself each time out. And as in American baseball, and there might be the analogy in England, it's the sophomore jinx. I mean, you're wary of that. You don't want to look like a flash in the pan or a one-time wonder, so to speak. So that I think it's very important for the credibility and the credentials of an artist to show that you can repeat with something that does not appear imitative and yet indigenous and special for the identity of the artist. You just hope that you get the goods the second time out, and if that does occur, you know you've got a major lasting artist on your hands.
And you have the luxury of knowing you have Wishing waiting.
I have the luxury of knowing I've got Wishing waiting, and equally as well, having seen them, you know, just a month or two ago as they left America prior to coming back and making it in their home country, I know. The group is good, and they communicate, and they're exciting in person, and they'll be around for quite a while.